All right, Pitmasters. Today on the podcast, we have Aaron Stoffer of Man Meat Barbecue Competition Team, currently the #1 team in the nation. But other than that, one of the consistent top 10s the past few years, right up there every single year. Aaron, say hello to the people. So let's just get started, man. Where did you come from? Where did this barbecue bug bite you? When?
Man, 2012, obviously Pitmasters TV show got a lot of people. But when I was growing up, we did a family, and we'd always go up to the farm, and we would do a whole hog roast, and I always helped out with it, just helping dress out the hog. And then, I think I was 6 and, just running around. I remember taking a pair of pliers and skinning a pig, and it was, that is what got you in the barbecue. No, I'm kidding. So, but just the nostalgia of cooking for the entire family. And after it was done, just going up with your plate, grabbing a handful of hog and going and eating it. It was a good memory, just the family gathering. And so that desire in 2012 came up, all this barbecue talk on TV. It's like, man, I really want to barbecue more. It wasn't even about competition. It was just wanting to cook and feed friends, feed family. And so my neighbor had a pit, and I talked to him. Actually, it's funny. His girlfriend talked to my wife, and she's like, "Oh yeah, he'll give it to you. He'll give you the smoker if you just ask him."
Nice.
And so I went over, asked him, and I said, "Hey, your girlfriend mentioned that you got the smoker." He's like, "Yeah, I think she told me I'd just give it to you." I don't think he agreed with that, but he was like, "I tell you what, whenever you cook, just bring me a plate, you can have it."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Deal." So did that, and it was a little 30-inch, offset Oklahoma Joe's, one of the original ones. So I still have it. I haven't cooked on it in years, but it sits in my garage. And but then I'm like, hey, this is only cooked 1 pork butt, so I needed something bigger. He came out one time and was like, "Dude, you're so good. You ought to compete. There's this local contest. Still has never done it, and I don't think it exists anymore." But I'm like, well, if I'm going to compete, I'm going to need something bigger. So I built a smoker, and trailer smoker, fabricated it all, did all the welding. It took me 6 months. The thing leaked like a sieve.
Wow.
So it leaked a lot of air. I was managing fires for all night long, low and slow, and that was kind of the beginning. On that thing from 2000, I think we did an event, cooking on the call in DeSoto, but we were cooking in the backyard contest. It was actually an employer sponsored event, and so we'll pull that out there. We cooked a bunch of food and did terrible, and thought we thought we were going to do well, but competition world really wakes you up a little bit. But
that was 2014, and you took 36 out of 46.
Yeah, we weren't last.
It's not terrible.
Yeah, it's not terrible. On your first barbecue season, you don't want to be in last of anything. If you do that, you're fine.
Yeah,
you're
not last.
As long as I'm not last, and it's funny because I think 2014, one event, and then one KCBS event. 2015, I think I did 6, maybe 7. 16, I did 2, and then 17, we started ramping up. We did 14 and 17, 14 and 18, and then 32 and 19, and I think we did 28 this year. So
what happened here? Because I'm going through barbecuedata.com, and it's a rough start. And then in 2019, 2018, the end of that, 2020, man, you guys just crushed. What was the catalyst for that? What happened there? What was like, what changed?
Well, one, you just started started cooking, right? You hear people, and you've had people on your podcast talk about this, the number of hours, right? You are not a professional until you've done so many hours. And, you can twiddle away and keep cooking, but the more you cook, the better you get. And so in 2017, actually, I think we had 2 RGCs. 2018 actually was a terrible year until the end of the year. And so it was just cooking more consistently. And then we switched. So we got rid of that leaky old smoker and we went to Gateway Drums. And I started cooking on Gateway Drums in 2017. Lauren Hill, the Smoking Hills, you want to talk about a world champion. He won the Royal in 2015, World Foods, same year. Really, really helped me out. But he wouldn't give you everything, but he would talk a little bit of, hey, you should do this or you should do this. And he always would say, hey, you need to use some commercial rubs. Stop using your own stuff. But we refused. We continued to use our own stuff. And so anyway, it was just getting more consistent and putting the hours in and starting to learn how to cook barbecue and watching YouTube videos and whatnot and reading books, Smoked, Iron Mixon's book, right? I think everybody has that one. If not, you should. It's a great starting learning tool. Just some easy recipes in there. You'll tweak and get away from them, but they work. I mean, we took Rod Gray's class. That's why we cooked 2 contests instead of just 1, because we took the class right after DeSoto, and then we're like, well, we took this class, we need to put it to use. And then we took the hot and fast class at the beginning of the 2018, and that was a great class to learn how to cook on drums. Right? There's drum cooking it's a fine line. There's a lot of timelines, and it's a very tight window to hit everything. And so that was in how they do it. And I didn't take away really from the class, but little techniques, things that other people in that class probably didn't even see or pick up. That's what I was looking for.
I always wanted to take Rod Gray's class, and I've taken the hot and fat class.
It depends on if you're outside.
If you look at me, you know that I've taken the hot and fat class.
It depends on if you're Tim or Brad, right? I'm kidding.
And that was an amazing class. But I've heard so many things about Rod Gray's class, and man, just taking those 2 alone, I think would be amazing. So after you took those classes, is that when you saw things kind of on the up end?
So I took the hot and fast class right after. So we finished 2018, I think, on a strong note, and really thought that cook that we cooked, the last one in 2018, thought that was a great cook. Really thought we had a shot. And then the hot and fast class. It just little things that we took and incorporated into our process. And that it just made things more consistent. And what was interesting is that between the hot and fast class and our first cook of 2019, I didn't cook a single time.
Oh.
So, and it was I just took notes and just things got to a position where I couldn't go and practice. And so we went into the first comp of the year and like, well, we'll see how we do. Right. And we just followed that process. Like, well, the food was okay. I guess. I mean, we'll see how it goes, and had no idea that we were going to put ourselves in a position to win. And when they called us, I mean, it was a pretty emotional event. It's an event you won't ever forget. So, and man, we've been cooking since 2014. It took us to 2019 to win our first contest. So, it was a long process, but things kind of changed after that.
Wow. Yeah. That talk about putting in that long stretch to be able to get that big call. But, did you own drums before you took the hot and fast class, or you took that class and went straight home and put your order in with Gateway Drum Smokers?
No. So I had one. I bought one. My brother-in-law had one. So we did a mixture. So we were cooking on a couple drums, and we're like, hey, let's cook the big meats on the drums. We cooked ribs still on the leaky old pit, and so I would pull a trailer, have the drums in the back of the truck. It was piling everything in the back of the truck, just trying to get the smokers there. I mean, it's people starting out. You see everybody loading the back of their truck, right? Totes and 10 by 10. That's what we did. And we did that all the way to, actually until the team changed. And that was when we decided to go ahead and start getting a trailer, a camper. But, it was crazy. So part of it and part of the change was I used to cook with my brother-in-laws early on. And then when essentially I had my wife come on, then all of a sudden our scores went up. So if you're having trouble and your wife's not involved in your team, get your wife involved, your scores will go up.
You know what it is, I think, is because your friends are around. You're like, heck yeah, we're barbecuing. And your wife's like, gosh, should I get this right? She's going to get mad at me. Like, why are you screwing that up? So you stay focused, at least my wife anyway.
Well, the wife is a great part of the team, apparently, because Rusty's wife went to the store, wanted to impress Rusty, and dug through all the ribs and found the most perfect rack of ribs I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Straightest bones, perfect thickness. It was epic. So
marbled, had barely any fat cap on it. It was amazing.
Yeah. Right. And
here I am, like, I had a hard time because I was cooking ribs for dinner and I only had one rack. I was like, I need to cut this up and keep it for competition. So when did that change happen? You got the trailer, got really serious. Was that 2019, 2018?
So that was actually, when was that? It was 2017. It was my wife and I cooking. So cool. 2016, the first comp, still brother-in-laws, the whole group, no sleep, all of that. And then the second comp, we took the Rod Gray class and we're like, well, let's just go cook this, the two of us, and see what we can do. And it was on the old pit, and we actually did well. I think we got a second place call that day. I think we got one call and happy with it, and progress, right? So then we're like, I think we should just run this, just the two of us. Let's see what we can do, and we did. And I got more sleep. Process started working. We started clicking together from a cook team. It's just, you have to learn each other, who's doing what, and be able to trust and rely on that. So we started doing that, and it was, things started getting better,
So what would you tell the person that's on the fence, they want to get going in, competition barbecue? Would you tell them like, hey, just take that class straight away? Or now that you've taken the classes, do you feel like maybe you can still do that on your own? Or is that, dude, it's kind of a class game now. We've learned so much that it's hard to learn that on your own. Is it important now, more important now to be in classes than it was before?
If you want to get just that learning curve as steep as you can, then jump into a class, right? That's going to shorten the curve a lot. But I'm not the guy that says, hey, before you go cook your first comp, go take a class. You have no idea what you're going to get out of that class. You have no idea what you should take from that class. Because you have to think about it from a standpoint that somebody's standing up there telling you what they're doing. Keep in mind that they've been cooking for a very long time. And if it's not a matter of time, they've cooked way more than you have. No matter how many times you fired up your pit in your backyard, they have cooked and done this process more than you. And so understanding what the process involves, go out, cut your teeth, find a local event. It doesn't have to be a big event, and don't have huge expectations. Just go in and just see what the process is, and then take a class. I think then you can learn and figure out what you need to take away from that class to get better.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, actually really is.
Totally.
So here's a question. We talked about it on our last episode. When you're getting into barbecue, were you making your own rubs and sauces, or were you running a commercial line? What were you doing there, and what are you currently doing?
So I started out running my own stuff, and so I still run my own stuff. So I've put in a little bit of commercial stuff, but the rub that we started with, we made in 2013 before we even started competing, is still the rub. Actually, I've got that rub right there. So now this rub is a lot different than the rub that I started with. It's been tweaked, and that was one thing at the end of 2018. We tweaked that rub, and then all of a sudden 2019 happened. And it was 2020 also happened. It still runs with us. So, but yeah, no, I mean, we decided that we were confident. We stuck with it. We just we're doing this. It's barbecue, right? Barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
It's sushi is art of food, right? It's with fish. Barbecue is the American sushi.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It is the art form of what Americans are all about. It's burning meat in a parking lot, and making terrible cuts of meat taste good. And there is a certain art form. There's all the science. Class is going to teach you all the science behind barbecue, but your flavor profile, the little things that you can do, you may not necessarily say, "Hey, I'm going to use all of my own stuff," but I don't know. I say be creative, but don't have to go too far out of the box to be creative and put your own mark and your own flavor on it.
Right. So when you're developing that rub, did you have a baseline rub that you started off with? Like, did you get something from some of the books you owned, or you just kind of just started throwing down in the kitchen and trying to get that look you're going for, that taste you're looking for, I should say?
Yes. So the very first time I literally got on Google and I was like, barbecue rub. and so I looked for a recipe. I'm like, oh, it's salt, sugar, pepper, garlic, some of the basics, paprika. And then I got to a point like, I'm throwing that recipe away. And then I'm just like, I understand what's in a rub, and understanding the different components and how much of each. And it was just trial and error, playing with it. My wife will tell you that she's probably eaten more rub than anybody else on this planet, because whenever I get it, I'm like, hey, come taste this. Taste this. She's tasted more batches of rub than anything. There's been some bad ones.
How long did that process take? Were you just throwing all this money at it, going, man, I'm going to get this right? Or is it just kind of like when you can work on it, because as someone who was trying to do the same thing you're doing now,
this guy, yep.
It's really hard. You put something in and then here's my favorite thing is you're eating it. You're like, oh, this is so good. And then you'll go grab some bold and beefy, and put it in your hand. Oh my, that is so good. I'm not near that. What's that process? How many, did you kind of knock it out of the park? But you said your wife did a lot. How often were you throwing rubs away and putting money into it? Was it was this narrow-minded goal, or just kind of whenever you got around to it?
It was mostly when we were cooking, and it's like, okay, hey, I need to put something together, or I would just have some time one evening and be like, hey, I'm going to work on some rubs, and I'd start putting them in baggies, and it's like I have all these little quarters, quarter baggies, it's just laying around, and I'm like, I need to start labeling things. I need to write things down, and I learned. It took me a while to know. And I don't know if where you are in the process, but get away from teaspoons, tablespoons, cups. Get away from it.
Weight. I'm going to guess weight.
Weight. Go to grams. Grams. Okay. The only way to do it. So 100% the only way to do it. Now, how I did it was, I took a tablespoon and I would take a tablespoon of salt and I would dump it on my scale and I weigh it. And I do it again. I do it again. And I do it again. I'm like, okay, what's the average weight of all of those dumps? And so I figured out, okay, I took my recipe and I converted everything to weight. And I'm able to make a batch of rub so much faster because I can do it by weight.
And more consistent.
Way more consistent.
And that was the thing. It's like, okay, if I'm going to use this on a regular basis, I need to be able to recreate it and it be the same every time. And that was, it was a huge help. And then And then I just got a bowl and a scale and just started dumping things instead of having to dirty up all the measuring spoons and cups. Yeah, it was eye opening at how easy it was once I did that.
Right. Like brown sugar, that's never consistent. If you're using that,
that's actually the first thing I thought of. Yeah.
Packing brown sugar the same every single time is not going to be the same.
Sometimes I'm stronger than I am the day before.
You might hit the gym the day before.
Maybe I had my Wheaties and I'm like really packing that sugar down.
Yeah. Well, on pepper, I mean, you think about the different grind on pepper. If it's a fine grind or restaurant grind or coarse grind or whatever it might be, or just fresh crack, the size of that pepper flake in a spoon is going to give a different weight. And so, if you want to weigh it out and get the same amount, then you can say, okay, hey, I've got this coarse grind and this fine grind. The same amount is all in weight. It's going to give you the same flavor.
Right. And then you're awesome. Did you say you're weighing in like grains as well, right?
In gram.
In grams. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Grains is that's for us.
That would be right. Yeah. So I did that with the rub, and I also did it with the sauce. And so, but yeah, I mean, it's sauce. I went through many different iterations. And I found a sauce out there on Google, and then I'm like, hey, I can take this sauce, and then I made it. Like, it's not that great. It's very, very bland. So I started adding things to it, and then I literally threw it away. And a lot of people love that sauce. It had a lot of mustard in it, and doesn't do well in comp, at least in the Midwest. But and so I'm like, I want to be something closer to a Kansas City style, but I don't like the thickness. I don't want like molasses in my sauce. There's not a drop of actual molasses in it. There is brown sugar, which has molasses in it. So, but there's no actual just straight molasses in the sauce. But yeah, sauce is out. We've got 3, getting ready to release 1 at the beginning of the year, and then I don't know if you saw or follow us on Facebook, but we played with a new sauce last night, and I'm real excited about it.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
So I have a question.
Well, real quick, where can you get all this stuff at?
Yeah.
You obviously go to your website, The Real Man Meat Barbecue.
Yeah.
.com.
That's right. We're in quite a bit of stores. So Proud Souls out in Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
Carry us, Littleton in Denver. Stoked Fire. Actually, I met those guys up in Wyoming. And they've got us in their new store. They just opened up in Loveland. Got a couple stores here in the Kansas City area. Casey Grilling Company. I'd be ashamed if I didn't mention them. They sponsor us. So, and then the barbecue store here locally. I think we're in 3 stores up in Minnesota. Northern Fire, Smokestack. Down in Georgia, we've made it to New Zealand. So it's
nice.
Yeah, all over. We're still trying to get into more stores. So, hey, if you're watching and you want to use our stuff, go to your local barbecue store and tell them to bring it in.
And they can, just so you know. I've done it before. Yeah. You're going to your barbecue store and request something, they can call up and get it ordered in for you. Yep. And a lot of stores will do just that. Even if they don't want to carry it, they can still order it for you.
Yep.
But obviously you can do that online, but
yeah. Well, so I'm the distributor. And in fact, actually, in my basement, there's a ton of product in there. So,
Nice. So, so I was going to ask about, you went commercial. A lot of your commercial stuff, they'll start adding stuff like an anti-caking agent to your rubs or anything like that. For one, do you use that? And 2, did you have to tweak your recipe even more to kind of mess around with that?
And if you do, why don't you like cake?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I wonder if there's any in here. Nope, there is. They do put some of that in there. So I didn't put it in home batch stuff. And I don't think they have any preservative in. Yeah, there's nothing in my sauce to make it shelf stable. That's not something that I would add. So my barbecue sauce, I mean, it's just as if I cooked it at home.
Okay.
So
nice.
I was actually quite impressed that after 16 test batches, we finally got there, which seemed like a lot. It took a long time. It took a long time to get the sauce right. But the rubs, Texas style, they got a hit on the first try. and Kansas City style. It took 2 test batches, and it was on. But no, the Anna caking, it literally is just like, I think, silica, just to keep it from
sticking together,
getting clumpy. But you mentioned bold and beefy, right? It's bold and beefy doesn't have any of that in it, and it gets hard if you let it sit there for a little bit.
Yes,
but
I know. I love that stuff. I'm beating the hell out of me.
He's in there with the hammer.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
But
we don't use a lot of different commercial rubs, but that is one that we use.
It's hard to go away from,
right?
I got hooked on. I can't get off it. Even if I do my own rub, I'd be like, oh, I still gotta use all of that.
I think my wife has more bold and beefy than I do. She uses it in the kitchen more than I use it at home.
It goes on everything,
right?
Everything.
You know, asparagus.
Yeah,
I'm putting it on my rib, my prime rib. That's what I'm putting. It's funny.
She made some. I think she made some onion dip on our YouTube channel, and it's in that. It's good. Good stuff.
And you kind of mentioned those 16 tries. How does that work? Do you send off your stuff to someone and they're like sending it back? Are you local, or is it this process of like changing mail and sending it off 16 times, receiving it 16 times? How does that whole process work?
Yeah, so I use McCarthy Spice out of St. Louis, and I'm in Kansas City, so it's a 4-hour trip. But the mail gets there a lot faster than I can get there, and so I sent them a control, right? So I made a batch, sent it to them, and said, "This is what you're matching." And I mean, the sauce was a pain because the ingredients mean so much more to me. And I don't know if it's just because of some of the variances. Liquid ingredient, there's so many different ways to make vinegar, for example, right? There's like 33 different flavors of apple cider vinegar. And, and if you're not using the right one, it can have a really big impact in flavor. So it was just figuring it out. And I finally got to a point, I think it was after test batch 10 or 11, that just send me the raw ingredient you're using. And so I can taste. And I literally was eating vinegar off a spoon. It was terrible. And it was, it was eye opening, and figured it out. And they finally got it right pretty quickly after that.
Cool.
And you don't think about that though. When you're going to send off what kind of sugar you're using at your house versus what the plant has in mass quantity, and also we've talked about it on some prior ones on how fresh your ingredients are at home versus what they're using there, because they're turning it over a lot faster. They're getting a lot fresher ingredients than your home use stuff. So,
that was a huge thing. So like, there's a chipotle powder in my sauce. If you've ever tried my sauce, there's chipotle in it. It definitely chipotle. Yeah, it's got a kick. And so what I was using at home, I had my batch. I had it all weighed out. I'm like, here it is. And he sent me the first sample, and I'm like, why is this so hot? What's happening here? And it was because of the age of my chipotle powder, and it was right off the shelf from the store that I was using it. So I thought I had fresh ingredient. You have no idea how long it's been in the warehouse, how long it's sat in the back of that grocery store before it hit the shelf, and then was that the one that's been in the back of the shelf forever, and they finally decided to face it, and it's this model that's been there for 6 months. And what really happened was that there was a test batch, and there's a lot of barbecue guys that got a bottle of this because I was handing them out. I finally got a fresh batch of what I use. And I use the same pepper every single time, same brand, everything. Got it from the exact same store. And there was one time it was like 4 times hotter coming out of their bottle, and I didn't notice it. And somebody was like, took a big old scoop of it, and they're like, wow, this is really spicy. I'm like, it's not supposed to be. but yeah, and that's so going to a co-packer really helps that process, and it really, really kind of got it where now it's really dialed in.
Well, that would save me some time, because now I'll just focus on because it's like, where's that McCormick's bottle I've had for 4 years of cayenne pepper way back there, because I'm adverse to spice, so I don't really
First
use
of all,
that.
you have McCormick's in your cupboard?
Why not?
It's horrible stuff.
What? It's not horrible.
You don't?
No.
Well, you bougie ass. What are you talking about? You don't have McCormick.
I lied. I have McCormick salt. That's
Excuse
it.
me.
Sorry.
Is this not Spice Hunter? Get it out of my home. The hell. Anyway, so that's interesting because you don't really think about that because the freshness of, we were using a dust for a long time and we were using the same dust, ingredients for a year and we ran out finally. So I had to go buy all new stuff and we ate tested like, whoa, man, that's got some bite now. I forgot how fresh ingredients are so important, and how, and that just kind of kicks you in the butt. You're like, dang, I don't know if we'll win on this anymore. And you used it on your chicken in Kansas City. Oh yeah, I used it on my chicken in Kansas City. That's probably what happened. Is we probably put too much on it.
Yeah, let everybody up.
There it is.
Problem solved. Let it age for a year.
Right.
Anthony broke.
Well, and that goes back to if we get back to competition barbecue, I mean that goes into what that is: control and consistency, right? And we probably are guilty of it. Finished powders like I got enough to get through another comp. Well, you just got to dump it and go again. I mean, how much rub is actually in there? Throw it in the spice grinder, grind it up, stay fresh, so that way your flavor doesn't change. Because if it hits on the second week, but not the first week, was it because it diluted a little bit and it was the right heat level and your actual fresh stuff is too hot or too salty or whatever, right?
Yeah, and one thing we did is we started buying the smaller bottles, and then when we got home, we actually started vacuum sealing them. So, or not when we got home. I'm sorry, we make the dust at home and we take it with us, and we'd vacuum seal up the rest of the seasonings that we used. So hopefully that helps. That's a new installment. So we'll get back to you on that one. But
and you might try the fridge.
Oh yeah, that's
freeze
a good
it.
point too.
You can freeze it.
Yeah,
let's slow it down.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I'll have to take caking too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love cake. That's a dumb joke, guys. I'm sorry.
I love cake, bro. Cake's my weakness.
Cake?
Yeah, cake is.
So yeah, getting back onto
competition
stuff. So a couple of things. Let's talk about. So you guys kill it in ribs. You took 4th place in ribs in 2018, I believe. Nationwide.
Yeah.
You guys do pretty well with those, and your YouTube channel is really cool. And if you guys want to learn how to cut ribs and trim them, go check out these videos because they're very detailed. I love the way you took a lot of time with some really detailed stuff as far as the process goes. Like I even learned something like, oh yeah, small cuts. Okay. Yeah. I'm the guys go, I just slashed the whole entire rib in half. Okay. But you have some cool rib stuff, but let's talk we can talk about stuff that was in that video on your YouTube page, but let's just talk about ribs. What are some things you look at? Let's say let's start at the store. When you're looking through ribs, what are you looking for competition barbecue?
First thing, color. A lot of times the ribs that I'm getting, they're probably frozen. I may not get there in time before they hit the freezer. So the marbling and the color are the first thing before I really do anything. And when I pick up a slab, and I'm not using whole spare ribs, right? I'm doing St. Louis cut, so getting rid of some of that weight that's going to throw away anyway. But looking for consistency and thickness from side to side, trying to keep that taper from being too much, from the cartilage side down to the bone side, right? And then straight bones as much as I can. But I don't know if you guys are part of the barbecue league, but I was part of the rib round table there and made that comment about pigs are round bodies, right? So to get straight bones out of round bodies, it's a hard thing to do. So you might find one slab out of 15 that has straight bones. So don't throw away all the other ones that have good meat, because good meat is what wins. The judges aren't eating the bones. They're eating meat. So look for marbling, and I like to see good richness in color. Not that pale pink. I want something that has some darkness color to it. And then just, hopefully there aren't any shiners. poking through or visible. So sometimes once you get that cryovac open, it's a whole new beast comes out of that bag than what you thought was in there. So I've had that happen.
Right. Hey, right. We're gonna stop right there for a second. Rusty, tell people what a shiner is, just so they don't know. Just so they know.
Oh,
this is lingo. This is barbecue lingo. Some people don't know what this is.
It's when your bone sticks out. So when you're cutting your bones sticking out, especially on the top part, you can actually see the bone. So it shouldn't be there. It should be covered by meat, but it's not. It's just sticking out.
Sticking out. There you go.
Yeah.
There's a shiner.
Top and bottom.
Yep, yeah. Top and bottom. Yep. And so the fat. Talk to me about that, because this is when I first started out. I was kind of worried about fat. Too much fat, I'd just leave it alone. I mean, it would pass all the tests. They had the straight bones, right? It had all the things, but it was fatty, really, really fatty. Is that something you kind of go, "Ooh, I'm going to pass on that one," or you just kind of hope for the best?
It depends on the fat. If it's pockets of fat or if it's marbled fat. If I see huge pockets on top, I'm going to keep looking. If the rest of that slab is good, So when I trim, I might even be trimming down more than what I was doing in the videos. I think I'm doing 9 bones now instead of 10. And the bones that I'm turning in, I might get 4 out of a slab. And I very, very rarely ever turn in less than 4 out of a slab. I won't do 3 and 1, for example. I'm not taking 2, 2, 2, 2 to throw in a box. I'm trying to get all my ribs out of 1 or 2 slabs, and that's how we go, because I think that's flavor and tenderness is going to hit. But from a standpoint of where that fat is on the rib, it makes a difference. If it's in the sweet zone, then I'm moving on and getting a different piece.
Right. Well, I kind of agree with you. Those 4 bones should all come out of the same rack, because if you have 6 racks and you're just grabbing 2, 2, 2, you're gonna have different textures on all of them. So
good.
That's just a theory in my head. I've always done 4 out of each rack. It's just,
I will tell you.
and
I tell you a story.
That well.
Last year, the end of 2019, we were running around trying to get to 3rd place in ribs, chasing points for one spot. I think it was worth $75. Right? To go from 4th to 3rd was $75. But we were trying to beat Bobby Stanfield, BS Barbecue Outlaws, and so we run to Texas in November, and we're like, we went down there just to cook ribs. We cooked the contest and cooked the 4 slabs. We were a lot closer to sea level than we are normally, and ribs cooked in 2 hours. I think maybe 5 minutes. I mean, that was normally we're running close to 3 hours, and they got done so fast. And I'm like, everything was looking good. And then when I went to cut them, like, how are these so black? All of them, all 4 slabs, they were black. And I was just so upset. And when we were cutting, I think that's the only time I've ever turned in. I took 2 bones from 3 slabs, threw them in the box, had 6 bones in there. And I threw them when I went to turn in. I threw them on the tray, and I didn't set them down nicely. You know how you're trying to not mess up. I didn't care. I threw it. I'm like, last place ribs. These are terrible. We won ribs that day.
Oh man.
And so I guess there was this story where I took 2 from 3 slabs. We won, and we jumped Bobby, and then he goes down to Demopolis and wins, and that was the only thing we didn't want him to do. And they did it.
So I guess there's 2 different styles then: 4 racks or 4 bones, or just random burnt ones.
We just
random burnt ones.
We just cut them up. That's the one thing. So one thing that I struggle with too is when I'm cutting into the ribs, like I don't know, like, what's your process of knowing which one you're going to use? Does it look tender? Obviously it's tenderness because that's the game, but how are you processing when I'm going to box this rib right here? What did that rib tell you?
Really, it's okay. So we will, Rod Gray's class teaches you in ribs. First bone, the waster. Always just cut it off, throw it away. Don't even worry about it. Don't save it. Don't even save it for the dog. Just cut it up, throw it in the trash. Second one is your taster. So you'll taste that second rib, and then that third one you're looking at. Okay, is this one or the next one was really kind of where that one's probably where you want it to be if your taster was flavor-wise where it needs to be, and then bite and whatnot. So we've evolved a little bit from that, and so we still do that process, but then I go in and look at them and feel them a little bit, squeeze them just a touch, just to see, do they have the right spring? But I can feel the right doneness when I cut it. And it takes cutting a lot of ribs to get that feel through the knife. And so I know as soon as I pull the knife through, it's like, nope, these aren't not there. And, it's like, the knife will tell me which ones are right. And that's what we've been going on.
It's like
to work.
Becoming a rib Jedi, It's like you feel the rib.
You feel the rib. Be one with the rib.
That one's done.
Well, it's all with all meats. Brisket, I can tell where it's like, nope, that's it. Where I don't need to cut anymore because I know it's over and I need to go back, or it might be under, right? Too not done enough, not tender enough. Chicken is the only one you don't really get that knowing feel, but pork and ribs and brisket, you can know with the knife.
That's cool. I like that too. I'm not there yet. I'm going to get there though. One day. I'm actually really excited about the day I can just feel the brisket and go, that's done. It feels like boobs.
Yes. He's referring back
the
to
jiggle.
Yeah.
The Beyonce jiggle, right?
Right. What was that? 3 episodes back?
Yeah. That was Little Miss Barbecue guy. Yeah. So Prairie Fresh is what you guys use. Tell me about why Prairie Fresh. What makes it so good for you guys?
And they've been consistent for us. Honestly, I've never cooked a compart rib. I've cooked compart butts, and just found good success with them. Again, Lauren Hill, he got me on to Prairie Fresh, and I just went with it. And it's one thing, just stick consistency in meat. Use the same brand. And you'll know how that brand cooks. And I learned a whole lot more this last year about the breed of Prairie Fresh. There's Duroc. It's a Duroc blend or cross in their pork, and they go through a lot of they use technology to their favor to get some really good pork.
Yeah, Richard Fragola was able to bring us some from when we went up to the Kansas City Invitational, and gosh, man, that was some of the best I've ever seen. He was telling me they actually have a machine that will go in and be able to tell the marbling before they even cut into it. I'm like, wow, that's something else.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. It's science.
Science.
Yeah, I mean, they use that for their prime butts, and so they've got a new line of butts out that it's. So they're not rebreeding anything. It's just, they say it's just like a prime beef, right? There's only so many carcasses that are considered prime grade. And Prairie Fresh has this scanning technology that they'll go through and look at fat content. And I don't know if it's using infrared or X-ray or what they're doing, but they do a pretty good job. But I used to go through and cull out the stuff just out of their commodity pork to find that stuff. Now they're doing it for me. So it's now it's not handpicked. Just to get it out of the case.
Right. So you have pork products that are going through this high tech digital world, and when it gets processed, it's just pork. That's it. It's a pork butt. But then on the beef side, you have some old timer that's sitting there with an FDA stamp, looking with his eyes and deciding, hey, that might be a prime, and then you pay premium price for that. Makes no sense to me.
Premium price.
Makes no sense to me.
You pay a little bit more for the prime butt.
Yeah.
But not near as much as you would choice versus prime brisket.
Right?
Yeah.
It was a nice butt. I'll tell you what. That was a pretty marbled. It was awesome. I loved it. It was so great. If we wouldn't have vomited it into our box at Kansas City Invitational, we would have probably done better.
Oh, come on.
Have you seen that box we did?
Yes.
It was terrible. It was really bad. It was like what his looked like after he threw it.
But he won.
I didn't.
I have some pretty ugly pork boxes that I can show you from early on. This looks like a dog decided like, this is a good spot to go.
I think he pooped in it. Don't eat it. Disqualified too. So you guys cook on Gateway Drum Smokers. I've looking at your rig. It's almost exclusively. How is that right? You're cooking on 4 of those, all 4 meats?
Yep, 4 of them. Yep.
And tell us about these Gateway Drum Smokers. As everyone knows, I'm the biggest fan. Love them. I love them. Just today, I was just go out, throw it, in the some coals in the basket, light it on up, and wait for it to get to 300, and just sits there like a pellet grill, and it's easy to clean. Boom.
Yeah.
What someone looking to get into drum smoker? What can you tell them about drum smoking and maybe some techniques that you use to keep it at temperature, or something maybe you didn't know before and you've kind of learned along the way that you can give some pro tips to the people looking to get one?
Sure. So Gateway drums, different drum than any other drum smoker. There's a bunch of other brands you can make your own, but they're not going to run like a Gateway drum. Gateway drums don't need anything, no electronics, nothing like that, right? It's all about airflow. And once you understand how to control that airflow and understanding the speed of which that the air is coming out of the exhaust, that is important. It's like a convection oven, right? So we start, we'll light our coals. We like using the Royal Oak tumbleweeds. They don't have any off-putting smell. The Weber Qs we used to use sometimes early on in that it smelled like lighter fluid. The tumbleweeds don't have that. So we like using those, the lighter pit, and depends on what I'm cooking and how fast I need to get my pit up. I'm okay with it running hot on certain meats, and I'm not as concerned with what that needle says as I am. I mean, I'll literally walk up and touch the top of a pit, and I know what the temperature is without looking at the dial. And again, it's just a matter of that repetition, just knowing, okay, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Again, just burning, getting that pile of ash big enough to get to that point. But before you're to that point, right, just make sure you have a good bed of coals. When you're in the drum, get in and out of it as fast as you can so you don't get those huge spikes. Don't forget to keep the lid on, And one little piece of advice, if you're getting in it, close the intake tubes. Just close them to take the lid off. You don't get the air coming down and over the top at the same time. And so it'll keep your fire from flaring up super fast. But just don't forget to open them back up when you put the lid back on.
Right. Actually, that's a good one because that's happened to us several times. You get to go out on brisket because we run hot, and you open that thing up, it's like,
it's like a flame ball coming out of there.
There was, I think, Lauren Hill and Brad Leininger probably were witness to a jet engine coming out of one of my drums at a comp. So they were across the way, and I ended up having in my pork drum, I had some foil right on top of my basket. Don't use just loose foil. Pro tip: use an aluminum foil pan. The foil will drip your grease back into your fire. While a little bit that's good, a lot of that's not good. And so I went in to reach to pull the foil out. I'd spilled all that grease on my fire, and it just came up. Gosh. I mean, literally, I had flames coming out of it. I mean, it looked like I was trying to just stay warm around like a homeless guy, right? It just so I put the lid back on, and the exhaust was open, and there were like flames coming out of the exhaust like 4 feet in the air, and it sounded like a jet engine. It was loud. It's like it was going to take off.
Wow.
But we still did okay.
Tim's over there like, I did not design those to do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, they don't have to be perfect, right? That needle doesn't have to stay exactly at 300. While it's designed to do that, and trust that 300 is what it should say for most of the time. Don't worry about what the temperature is on that rack, because it's not going to be anywhere close to that 300. And there's too many people who are trying to figure out, my gauge is off. It's not your gauge. It's how they're designed to run.
That's interesting.
That's on any pit though, too. There's fluctuations like Traeger's, your pellet cookers. They fluctuate from 15 degrees high or low.
I think it's more worrisome on a drum though, because we're usually going 300 plus.
Yeah. But, but still, if you just, like you said, learn your drum, you'll be good to go. And there's that fluctuation. You will start seeing a spike. It'll go up 25, 30 degrees high. But if you know what you're doing, you can bring it down pretty quick.
Rusty, have you ever put a temp gauge on your rack to see what it is?
Yeah. When we first started out, I was trying to get a feel for what it was. Yeah. And it's not.
What did it say?
It's completely off. When you're doing when I'm looking at
you're like, it's 300, right? You're like,
yeah.
Why does that say 360?
Yep. Up here, it's like, it was crazy. So, and it kind of taught me, well, then I had to reach out, and I was really worried about it. I thought it was broke. I'm like, it's a tele-true. I'm like, I don't know what the hell that means. This is hot and this one's not. But then eventually you kind of got to learn that it's not, that doesn't really matter. You got to kind of learn not to do stuff like that and worry about it too much, because, like, especially like a brisket, I worry when I do chicken. I worry a little bit about ribs because the color, if you're too hot, I feel like that color can get a little dark on you.
Right.
But everything else, man, we're just let it ride. It's 350. It's 350.
Oh yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah. I mean, you if you walk over and look, depending on where I am in my cook process, and look at my temp gauges, they don't always say 300 on purpose most of the time.
That's too old school for me. I'm high tech. I use ThermoWorks bellows on my drum and make sure everything's perfect. Wires everywhere. It looks like it could blow up any moment. But
I think that actually throttles those things down. I think it changes how they cook.
And that's the
thing. They're not designed to. Yeah,
you got to learn. That's what we were doing. We're trying to temp it to kind of learn where our gauges are. So we can look at it, and they're different. Each barrel's different. It's weird.
Oh yeah.
So we'll have one that will. We know if it's like about 275, we're probably rolling, right where we need to be. About 300 degrees. So it's just kind of depends on your pit, so keep that in mind too. But
I think the pit difference, and this is my hypothesis, right? It's your charcoal that's causing the pit to be different.
Interesting.
I was just going to ask that. Does a lump coal burn better in a drum than a
even
briquette?
more? Is it like
I've never used a briquette in a drum. I'm not even talking same charcoal, same bag. 2 different fires.
Interesting.
And the reason for that, you think about it, if like Blues Hog charcoal, and you open a bag, you open it up, and you see all the big chunks on top.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to the bottom, it's a lot of smaller chunks. It's denser, so there's not as much airflow through your basket, right? And so when you dump, I now intentionally dump my charcoal in certain baskets depending on the meat. So top of the bag goes in brisket, top of the bag goes in pork, bottom of the bag goes in chicken and ribs.
Wow. That is cool. That's awesome.
There you go, guys. More pro tips.
So, and now if you're using exactly all the same, I don't think it's going to matter, but it's because of how chunky the charcoal is. There's more airflow going through. And the more air, again, these drums are all about airflow. So that's, if I want a hotter fire, I want the bigger, chunkier stuff because there's more air going through it.
I wonder if that's it, because we have drums set aside for certain meats, because I don't want to cook my chicken in my brisket drum, So our chicken drum is very precious. It doesn't get used ever except for chicken and competitions. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. And so we'll set up the brisket first, whatever second. And it's always the case. So I wonder if that's it really. I wonder if we were to kind of do an experiment and kind of do it backwards, if our hot running one is not so hot running anymore. That would be interesting to check out.
I watched a team America. They haven't competed in a few years, but I watched them actually sift their charcoal. Literally sift it and then get out all the small stuff. Yeah. And then they just put it all in there. They get all the small little stuff out and just worry about the big chunks.
Interesting.
Yeah. I once I put it in the basket, I'll shake the basket, get all the fine stuff out, because again, that's just clogging up the air.
Dang. Yeah. That's what I need to, that's next step for me then.
And the small stuff makes the like that crackle too. That'll kind of float up and stick to your meat as well.
Yep.
That's my favorite part. I don't know if it helps the meat, but it's just cool.
It's just cool to watch the crackle.
It's neat. So what?
There you go.
I'll send you all the ash crackle there for you. Then.
Thank you. I just like to,
I'll save it all for you.
Well, cool, man. We do appreciate you coming on the show and dropping all this stuff for us. I think I've learned a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I was just like, hey, cool. I didn't know that before. So we're sure that everyone will. But, we wish you luck. We hope you can continue to hang on to this first place spot, because I know that you're one of those teams that when we look at the list, like, Man Meat's going to be there.
Hey, we used to look at the list and be like, man, Boomerang getting bases.
Yeah.
Gotta be kidding me. Clark Crew there. This is going to be a nightmare. So we cook with the family. I had my toddler. She turns 3 on Saturday. She goes to comps. She was in Wyoming running around, and so we deal with that on a regular basis. And but just know that everybody, whoever lights up in a parking lot, lights their pit, they have this equal opportunity to walk last that day. And just know that the mindset you walk in to a comp with is really going to be kind of how you go about and how you finish, right? So going in and being like, you know what? Great. Boomerang's going to be there. Awesome. We love it. Hopefully I hit a same table on every single meet. I want to go head to head with them. And if you have that attitude and you're like, my food's good, I know it's good. You just have to hit the right, roll the dice on the tables and hit the right taste buds, right? Everybody's taste buds are different. Just, sometimes your food isn't exactly what that judge is looking for that day, and that's okay. Just go out and do it again.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's too bad in the Kansas City Invitational they weren't looking for really dry chicken, because I would have done really well. I would have crushed it that day. So,
our chicken wasn't dry, and I don't know. We were pretty close to you in chicken. So,
that's true.
Apparently, we're not a very good chicken cook.
Well, apparently that day. Gosh, man. Anyway, man, we do appreciate it. And we will definitely see you on the road, because, you get around, you get out there and get her done. So good luck to you on this year coming up in 2021. Hopefully there's more competitions, and hopefully you can take this 451 and turn it into whatever it takes to win it. Cause that's awesome, man. We appreciate your time so much. And thanks so much for coming. We'll see you on the road, man.
Cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thanks.